doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing fine. I was so nervous before you came on, but now that you're here, I'm so much better. In a couple of weeks, you will perform at Lollapalooza, Brazil, and this will be your first time ever performing here. So, what are your expectations for these Latin American shows?
I'm excited. I'm excited to perform, in a place I've never played before. So in South America and in Brazil is in particular, I have never played there. I've kind of got a sense of some very wonderful support from fans there. But to sort of play the music for the first time anywhere is exciting and something new and different. But also crowds in Brazil and Latin America in general are famous the world over for being such wonderful having such wonderful energy. So I'm excited.
Very true. And because this will be your first time here, so many fans have been waiting so long to see you play, and they want to listen to everything. So, how do you make a set list for a concert like this? How is that process like for you?
Yeah, I think for me, I would want this set list to kind of represent the work across like from the beginning. I also recognize that it's like people will have, relationships with different songs from different albums. So any set that I do is as a real mix of all three records, and it depends. If it's a festival slot and we have like an hour to play with, I'll just try to kick out as many high energy sort of songs, as many sort of the favorites as possible, I guess. So it depends always on the show, and it depends what time of day that show is, and whether it's evening, what the vibe is. But yeah, we're just trying to make sure it represents the work broadly.
Well, I'm sure that the fans will love anything that you come up with. I think it's going to be great. On the opening song of your latest album, Unreal on Earth, you sing the outro of that song in Irish. And what was the thought process behind that creative decision? Because although you are Irish, I believe that that was the first time you've put that in the song.
Yeah, it's the first time. I mean, I've sang in Irish in different projects, and obviously spend would have studied the Irish language from being a kid in school.
Hmm.
But it was the first time I decided to kind of put it into the work. I think part of it is that a lot of the influences of that song, a lot of the influences across the record were coming from Ireland. I'd spent a lot of time during the pandemic at home. So to be in a
Hmm.
place in and to spend time in Ireland for a while, to spend time closer to the language. But then also, I kind of recognize that there is, like any language, there's a certain color, there's a certain music to it. All languages have an inherent music, they have a certain, like, aural quality, how it sounds, how it rests on the mouth. And that was something I just wanted to explore. Even before I knew what I wanted it to say for that song, I knew I wanted to do it in Irish. The prospect of being able to bring the music across the world, to sing in Irish in territories outside of Ireland, and introduce introduce crowds to the Irish language that way felt really exciting.
Yeah, I mean, at least from my experience, that was the first time that I've ever heard it in a song. So your mission was accomplished.
Right, there you go.
Recently, and to my personal delight, you were featured in Noah Khan's song "Northern Attitude." And so, how did
Yeah.
that happen?
Well, Noah was working on a kind of a collaboration version of his wonderful album Stick Season. So he's got some incredible kind of duets in that, and collaborations with like people like Brandy Carlisle, Casey Musgraves, Gracie Abrams. And yeah, they reached out, and Noah's been familiar with my work for years, and we're very, I guess we're musically very aligned, and I was totally honored. We've sang together as well on stage a couple times. He's joined me
Yeah.
for festivals, and I've joined him for some of shows, and it just felt right. And Northern Attitude was the first song that I remember. I remember when I first sat down to listen to Stick Season. Northern Attitude is the opening song. I remember just being blown away by that. And also I really connected with that. Forgive my Northern Attitude. I was raised out in the cold. It
Yeah.
also kind of resonated a little bit with my experience growing up. And Ireland, Latin name is Hibernia. Ireland used to be called Hibernia. So we still call, like, the Irish dialect, or the English speaking Irish dialect is sometimes called Hiberno English. And Hibernia just means land of winter. It all just seemed appropriate. And I just loved that line. I loved that song dearly. When I first heard it, I was blown away. So I was thrilled to hop on it, and absolutely delighted to.
Well, thank you for sharing that because I didn't know that it was called by something else. So that's really fun,
Yeah,
actually.
it felt right. It felt right, and it's just also a banger of a song. And
Oh my God,
I love.
he has a line there. I was raised on Little Light. So
Yes,
much, so powerful, so amazing.
wonderful. Yeah, It really is. He's such a great songwriter.
Yeah. And you know, just a few days ago, you released a new edition of your second album, Wasteland Baby, and that album is featuring a brand new track. Why did you feel like you needed to release this song now, like 5 years later? This is kind of like your own vault track, if you know what I mean.
Kind of a bit of a vault track, yeah. I thought
Yeah.
B, it's my favorite version of B, and in some ways, some part of me laments the fact that it wasn't heard. Sometimes until a song is released, you just can't let go of it, and it still can play in your head now and then. It feels like it's rattling in your pockets. So with a song like B, I was just happy to get it out there. We also never, I don't believe we ever did like a deluxe or special edition for Wasteland Baby, just to have that to offer those two songs. You know, it seemed like something that we could do. But I'm excited for people to hear B and let free it, just release it.
And since we're speaking of it, can we expect to hear it live soon since you're going to be playing some shows?
Possibly
Okay.
the acoustic version of B, maybe. I'm
Yeah.
also releasing music. Yeah, maybe. I'm also releasing like an EP in March 22nd. So yeah, it's picking which songs to add to a set list, and it's can be a challenge. So we'll see, but it's possible.
Okay, I'll take that. And since we're speaking of Wasteland Baby, I was wondering if you have any favorite songs off that record. Any song that was the most fun to write, any of songs that are the most fun to play live.
I have a real soft spot for a song called As It Was, unrelated to the wonderful Harry Styles track As It Was, but the song called As It Was, which was one of my favorites on that album.
And you know, as someone who writes from a very personal and vulnerable standpoint, do you have a hard time deciding what goes and what stays out of an album? Like, do you think that vulnerability is something that you should look at it like, oh my God, this is too personal? Or do you think that that's what makes it special?
For me, it's always a balance. I guess it's always a balance. I wouldn't want the work to be too much of a diary entry. I don't
Mm-hmm.
want, and I'm wary of just like trading off of personal intrigue into my
Mm-hmm.
life and its private workings. I wouldn't find that necessarily interesting. I hope other people wouldn't find that interesting. It's also just finding what is personal that is also of the collective and is also universal. There's times when I'll find something, I'll draw something out which feels entirely personal, feels entirely private. Um, but it generally finding that it is something that is universal and it can be universally understood and felt. That often is the case with a lot of the stuff that I find connects with people. It's a fine line between making sure that I can do that in a way that feels natural, feels
Mm-hmm.
authentic, and isn't too specific or explicit about something.
Well, I think you're doing a great job at that. And sometimes, I mean, oftentimes when people reference your work online, they talk very lovingly of tracks like From Eden and Work Song that are songs off of your debut album that came out like 10 years ago. So
Mhm.
these songs really lingered with people. How does that make you feel as a songwriter to be able to make art that lingers with them?
I feel really, really fortunate that people have gained a relationship with the work, such that like a lasting relationship with the work, and I'm honored that people love it such that they're coming to shows 10 years later. If more people wanted to come to shows now than ever. And I think so it's
Yeah.
also, and I think it maybe people have had 10 years with that first album, have had nearly 10 years to gain a relationship with the work and allow it into their lives and their hearts and stuff like that. It's really encouraging to me that people that's growing, people
Yeah.
yeah.
So our publication is called We in the Crowd because we are often covering concerts from the crowd. And we would love to know, and this is a question that we ask everyone, what is the best experience that you've ever had from the crowd, like watching someone else perform?
From the audience.
Yes.
My goodness, like best as a concert goer experience. I've had some wonderful experiences being a kid going to festivals. I remember doing a late night show, I think it was Bonnaroo, and D'Angelo, if you're familiar with D'Angelo, was playing a 2 a.m. set or a 3 a.m. set. And
Oh my.
we stayed outside and we were kind of partying and we caught D'Angelo late at night, and that was fun. That was something special. And watching his command of the band and how incredibly disciplined and technically just brilliant they are. I think he was playing like Pino Palladino and maybe Chris Dave. Amazing band. Yeah, I've had some wonderful experiences in the crowd. Played in sorry, I didn't play in, but I remember I was chatting to one interviewer earlier on today, and I caught it a night in I was in Rio de Janeiro once and caught it a samba night. What was unique
my
about that
God.
was that the entire audience was like the backing vocalist, the kind of the second line, singing all of the responses to nearly every song in the set. The
Mhm.
band itself sat around a table as opposed to sat on a stage. So it felt very like it was a communal experience. It wasn't like we were there watching a stage, everybody facing forward. The crowd was around the room. The band were around a table, just like sipping drinks and just playing a night, and the entire crowd sang every song. That to me was really unique. And
Yeah. Come during Carnival more. It's always
yeah,
like that. It's beautiful.
I should hopefully one day.
So I just wanted to say thank you for taking your time to talk to me. This is always an honor. I'm so happy that you said yes to this. It truly made my day. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Giovanna, and I really appreciate it. Yeah.